Hi everyone, Aiden here at the etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Thule WingBar Edge Roof Rack system and seeing how it fits on our 2023 Kia Telluride. So this is going to be designed for Kia Tellurides with flush rails. And what that means is if you look to your roof, you're either going to have no existing rails, raised rails, or these flush rails. Now, both flush rails and raised rails are just some sort of bar system that sticks up above the roof. Those are going to be different because raised rails have a gap underneath, flush rails do not. So take a look at your roof, see what you've got, and plug that information into our fit guide. That's going to recommend and give you the kits that are confirmed fits for your roof type. So if you're watching this, you've got a flush rail roof, then this is going to be a kit for that. In addition to that, this is going to be a flush mounted roof rack. And what that means, there's a lot of flush going on. That just means that the crossbar ends in the foot pack here. So rather than having the crossbar stick out beyond the roof a little bit, it's going to end in the foot pack. And for me, I really like it in this kit especially because it's a very easy install process. It reduces the measuring you have to do, but it gives a very nice, clean, factory-like appearance because everything just ends neatly in the sides. Now, as far as the styling of that roof rack goes, that's really going to be personal preference. Some people prefer to have the crossbars stick out a little bit further from the vehicle, and it's going to be a little bit more functional having that too. If you plan on using something like a load assist kayak carrier, which will help you load up a kayak onto the roof, then you need a little bit of overhang on your crossbars to make those systems work. But if you're not planning on that, you may be looking at a roof rack just for the looks of it, or to just mount a single accessory, maybe something like a box for a road trip, then something like this works just fine. You don't need all that crossbar space, and you get a somewhat cleaner looking install. These are going to be aero bars. The crossbars are thicker in the front and taper off towards the back, which is going to help them resist wind noise and drag a bit better. If I take off these end caps on the outsides, that'll expose the T-track on top of those crossbars. That lets us add T-track accessories, so it's going to be a really clean look once you slide those in because there's nothing underneath the crossbars. But this style of bar will work really well for clamp around accessories too. And on the topic of this cover, that's going to be the piece that kind of locks all this up, both the T-track and the hardware to tighten down all of this to your roof. Now, right out of the box, it's going to come with these plastic cores. So you will need something like a quarter or a flathead screwdriver to turn it into the locked or unlocked position. Personally, I don't love these because they tend to wear away pretty quickly, especially if you're using metal tools like a screwdriver. But you can upgrade these to lock cores that require a key if you want to. And while the cover's off, we can take a look at the clamp mechanism here. On the outside edge, we can see it's biting into this lip on the flush rail, helping to create a nice strong hold. And around that is going to be our fit kit. That's this rubber pad here. That's going to be custom shaped and contoured to fit around the top of the flush rail, making sure there's no gaps. Some measurements to keep in mind with the roof rack is that it's obviously going to add height to your roof. From the roof to the top of the crossbars, it's going to add 4 inches of height, and that's at the tallest point. And then from the bottom of the crossbars to the roof, it's going to be about 2 3/4 of an inch. That's going to let us know how much space we have for clamp around accessories. I'd say for most cases, it's going to be more than enough, and you shouldn't have any worries making contact with the roof when you're adding accessories. And the other thing we like to point out is your crossbar spread. That's the distance from one crossbar to the other, and that's important to mount up accessories because certain accessories will only work with a certain range of crossbar spreads. The good thing about this system is the way it clamps onto the flush rail, there's no fixed mounting points. So you can move them anywhere that you've got that flush rail, which is great because depending on the accessories you choose, you can move them to match it. And if you plan to maybe change out accessories, go from one to another, you can move it every time to accommodate those accessories perfectly. Now, speaking of that installation process, it's going to be really straightforward, probably one of the easiest roof racks that I've installed. But we'll walk you through the process and show you how it's done right now. We're going to be attaching our feet to the crossbars. It's going to be pretty simple to set up. I really like the way Thule sets this system up. The legs or the feet are going to come with the cap on, so just squeeze that and pop it off. Might be a little tricky at first, but get that removed, and underneath where my hand is here, there's going to be this plastic sliding piece here with a square. That's going to match up with a cutout on our crossbar right there. And if we look a little bit closely at that plastic piece, if I press on it, it's kind of hard to see because I've got to get my thumbs in the way, but it'll depress down just a little bit. So match up the foot with the crossbar here. Our arrow bars make it pretty easy to line up and see that one end of the foot is longer and will kind of line up. And push down on that plastic piece to get it to go into the channel of the crossbar underneath. If you're having trouble with it, you can use the included Allen key to apply pressure down on it, or you can get it by hand, but as you push it in, you'll feel some resistance, it'll pop in, and that square will occupy the cutout. If I try to pull the foot out now, you'll see it's stuck in there. That's exactly what we want. Once you have both sides secured, we can turn our attention to our clamping mechanism. There's going to be two different pieces, an A bracket and a C bracket. We're going to start with the A bracket, and you want the A to be right side up. And on the top side, there's two smaller tabs that will go in towards the foot. There's a threaded bolt that will pass through the middle of that A bracket, and those two longer pieces will slide in around the foot like that. We can flip it upside down and take our rubber pad. This is part of our fit kit that's labeled B. So we're just going in alphabetical order here, A to B. B will just press down into place, lining up with all the shapes of the foot. Pretty straightforward. And C will be our other bracket. We want that C to be, again, right side up whenever the crossbar is right side up, and facing out. So just get it lined up with the A bracket. The threaded bolt will go through the middle hole, and we can take these nuts. They're kind of nuts, but they essentially do the same thing. Just thread them very loosely onto that bolt so that the clamp stays together, and repeat this on the other side. It's a good idea now to tear apart the weather strip that comes with your crossbars, just straight down the middle. There's going to be a small perforation, and get that popped into the T-track channel on top of your crossbar. These are side specific, but a good way to know which one is the front is to look at these little arrows. They point towards where the front of the crossbar and the front of the vehicle is going to be. Just slide it into the channel and work your way down. You can take your assembled crossbar and gently set it on the roof, trying to line the clamp up with that raised rail. Now, it is a good idea at this part to maybe have an extra set of hands on the other side. You can do it by yourself pretty easily, but an extra set of hands always helps. At this point, you want it to be even and running parallel. You can see we've already got one of our crossbars already installed, and a good point of reference I found for the install is to actually line the center of these bolts, or these nuts, up with the seam between the two doors here. It's going to be a great way to tell if we're parallel. I always recommend taking measurements too, just to double check, but that's a great reference for us. And I did the exact same thing for the rear crossbar, lining it up again with that seam for the back door. That's going to also give us a pretty ideal crossbar spread of 32 inches. When you're happy with the spacing, use the included tool to tighten down the clamps, the outside nut here, on both sides. Now with this, you can just do one side, then the other. You don't have to go back and forth to evenly tighten them because nothing's getting pulled for this, just clamping it down to the roof. And we'll know that it's torqued when we hear that click. Once those bolts are tightened down, you can turn your attention to the bolts up top. These ones we do want to do slowly, going back and forth from one side to the other to make sure the crossbar tightens up evenly. And again, tighten this until you hear a click. When everything's torqued down, you can come back to those cover plates for your feet, pop them back into place, and take the plastic cores that are included in your kit and pop them into the open slot here. If you chose to get the optional lock cores, at this point that's when you would add the lock cores. For the plastic cores, I recommend using something like a plastic trim tool to turn them to the lock position. You can use a flat blade screwdriver, but I find that the metal on the screwdriver will kind of mar up the plastic and damage it. You can use something like a cord or two, but for me, the plastic trim tool works best. And after that's done on all sides, you can give it a good shake test, make sure that nothing's moving, and then you're good to go. It's a really simple install. And that'll do it. Aside from the easy install, I think it's going to be a really solid roof rack system. Thule makes a great product. It fits remarkably well, and it's going to have a lot of nice features. So whether you're looking to mount things up in the T-track up top, clamp around those accessories, or you just need easy adjustment on the flush rails of your vehicle, I think it's going to be a really good fit for the 2023 Kia Telluride. Thanks for watching.